The official Vintage Guitar Magazine Price Guide has partnered with 33 of the top guitar dealers in the industry to provide the most accurate values for thousands of models. This includes electric guitars, acoustic guitars, basses, amplifiers, effects, mandolins, and banjos. Whether your instrument is an investment or simply a piece you enjoy playing, it's always helpful to know what it's worth. If you're checking out a guitar at your local shop and want to know its value before making the purchase, this guide is your go-to source for all the details. Available in both print and digital editions, you can have the guide right at your fingertips no matter where you go.
Hello and welcome to Buy That Guitar, presented by Vintage Guitar Magazine. I'm your host, Ram Tuli. This podcast is about the joy of guitar. That includes buying guitars, selling guitars, collecting guitars. We're talking vintage guitars, new guitars, used guitars, pre-war, flat tops, electric Spanish arch tops, custom shop guitars, limited edition guitars, basses, amps, effect pedals, lap steels, mandolins, banjo. If it has strings, we're going to talk about it. I spent most of my life studying the vintage guitar market. It's truly something I love and I'm passionate about. I can talk guitars all day, and I'm going to. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another thrilling and exciting edition of Buy That Guitar. Today, I'm with Jay Mascis, the singer, guitarist, primary songwriter, legendary band Dinosaur Jr., known for his monolithic riffs, extensive use of fuzz, feedback, distortion. Mascis ranks number 74 on the Rolling Stones number 100 Greatest Guitarists. He's number 5 on Spin List 2012 100 Greatest Guitarists. His signature Fender Jazzmaster and Telecaster tones are truly defining what we call indie rock today. So how are you, Jay?
Yeah, I'm all right.
Thank you for doing this podcast. You know, I asked the gang at Vintage Guitar Magazine who would be the perfect person to have as a guest when I did the Jazzmaster show. It was unanimous. Everybody says it's got to be Jay Mascis. It's got to be.
Oh, cool. All right.
You know, all those in the vintage guitar world that know everything about everything, you're the guy.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
I talked to somebody, I won't say his name, a common friend between us, and I told him I was doing the interview, and he says, the first question I should ask you is, why so loud?
Well, I think it was because I played drums as a kid, and when I switched to guitar, it was just to form a new band, and I couldn't get the same dynamics out of playing guitar. It seemed really wimpy compared to drums, so I just kind of thought I should play loud to feel a thump and feel it in my back, and then
to feel it, right? Yeah.
Also, so I could get some dynamics. It could be really quiet and then get really loud and scare people.
Mm-hmm. We go way back to the beginning. You're from Amherst, Massachusetts, correct?
Yeah.
Our paths may have crossed because my sister was going to UMass.
Oh, wow.
In the 1984-85. I was in the Navy.
Yeah.
Whenever I drove home to Boston, I'd always stop at Amherst, Mass. to see my sister and her Sigma Kappa sorority sisters, and they all became my pen pals. Maybe we crossed paths somewhere in those early 80s. Who knows,
Who knows, yeah. Yeah, I was there.
Yeah, so I know that you start off as a drummer, and I love how people maybe you describe it as air-bleeding loud country. That's where you start off.
Yeah, that was the original concept for the band. Like, we have the band, and we're like, oh, so what kind of band is it going to be? And that was just like the original concept. Like, we just thought, well, I've never heard anyone play really loud country before. Maybe that's a good place to start.
Mm-hmm. And now, like, when you did country, do you mean like Hank Williams type country, or do you mean like Bakersfield type country, or were you actually doing real country?
I don't even know. Yeah, I liked like Charlie Rich and Willie Nelson, that kind of stuff.
Boy, I would love to hear that. You guys doing that kind of stuff. The Guitar Guide started you off with a Jazzmaster. I know this is a famous, tale about how you go into Slimy Bob's guitar ripoff, and you're looking through the Valley Advocate.
Yeah.
And it's funny how in 1984, I think is that when you bought the Jazzmaster, 84?
Could have been 83.
83, 84.
Yeah, maybe 83.
It is funny because when I think that's about the time I was looking for my first Stratocaster too.
Yeah.
And it was $400. Remember, that was like Stratocasters were $400, Telecasters were $400. And in those days, when you showed up to see the Stratocaster, it was always a natural. I bet you the one that you were hoping to buy was a natural.
Well, that's the one I have now. Like, I finally bought one that was kind of like the one I would have bought. Yeah, I bought a 70s natural one, but I'm not sure what color it was.
Yeah, I just remember back then, every time I went to see a Stratocaster somewhere and it was $400, it was always that hippie natural.
Yeah.
And, even if it was like a vintage guitar, somebody had stripped it off to make it a hippie natural. I just remember that was the thing,
Right.
in the early 80s. Every Stratocaster I came across had that.
Yeah, that was big in the 70s, I
Yeah.
guess, yeah, to make everything natural.
When I first heard you talk about Slimy Bob's guitar ripoff, I thought that was a real place. And
It was, yeah.
I was like, I wonder if that guy's still in business. And I guess his cousins are all out there on these online stores now, huh?
Oh, really? Yeah.
There's always that Slimy Bob guitar ripoff, this is what I offer you. And when you show up for it, it's got to cost this much or that much.
Yeah, I remember I got a pic. It said, "You've just been ripped off by Slimy Bob," and it has his phone number on it.
Yeah. So that was the thing, I remember $400 would get you. And I never had $400 because that was my teenage years. And I was always speeding and getting speeding tickets. And
Yeah.
I'd get to about $390 and then bang, exhibition driving or whatever it was. So I never.
I had exactly $400, and when I get there, suddenly it's $450,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, fuck. And he had a Jaguar for $200 and a Jazzmaster for $300.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like the way the Jazzmaster. I mean, the Jaguar looked better, but the Jazzmaster kind of felt better. It had a worn-in neck already, and it had Grovers on
Yep,
it too, which appealed to me.
And, that I can picture it. But it's funny how in the history of vintage guitars, how there's a circle of fifths, the chords? Well, there's like a circle of fifths of value for vintage Fenders.
Yeah,
And traditionally, Jazzmasters, they always get third billing in the vintage guitar world, like in the Fender world. To get the same year Strat, that Jazzmaster's 40% cheaper.
right.
That changed. Like 10 years ago, they were around 30% the same year Strat. So the price of Jazzmasters have gone up the quickest.
Right.
You know how you talk about meme stocks, like a Tesla or something is going for this much. It's way more than it's worth, but everybody's paying that, so you get in on it,
Yeah.
and then it returns back to normal. And that's kind of what's going on right now with the Jazzmaster. It's kind of returning back to its 30%, not 40% of the price of a Strat. So in the years when the Stratocasters were sky high, this was your way to get your foot in the door to the vintage Fender, was that Jazzmaster.
Yeah.
Traditionally, same year Jaguar is traditionally half the price of a Jazzmaster. A Mustang is usually about $2,000 less than the Jaguar. Electric 12s are about $1,000 more than the Jaguar. But they always kind of stay in that thing. And that's kind of like, that's through history. That was always the case until the last couple of years when Jazzmasters just popped.
Right.
They actually got to over $20,000, almost $30,000 for some of those early 58s with the anodized pick guards.
Yeah. I was playing a 59 on tour for a long time, and I suddenly saw they're like $35,000, and I'm like, oh shit, baby, I should leave this at home now. I don't know.
And that's kind of like, I think those are coming down to earth. Although the anodized is a big deal. Like,
Yeah.
I tell people, if you got that early first year Jazzmaster and it's got the anodized guard, it's worth bucks. It's worth big bucks. People really want them.
Yeah.
The only thing is your fingers turn black when you play them a lot.
Oh yeah, I haven't noticed that.
In fact, you know how the Duo Sonics in the early 50s, they all came with those anodized guards? They stopped doing it because parents were complaining that the kids were always smudging the walls because they'd go play their Duo Sonic or Music Master, and then they'd go and wipe their hands on the wall, and there were all these black fingerprints.
Oh, cool.
So anyways, in using that formula, if your birth year is 1963 and you're looking for a Stratocaster, it might cost you up to $30,000. But that Jazzmaster, you can get it for about a little over 10. And the Jaguar, same year, about 5. So a little over 5. So that always works out. If you want one, you can go down or you can step down. So anyway, so the Jazzmaster, that turned out to be a serendipitous thing for you.
Yeah, because I was learning to play guitar at the time, so I just, really incorporated it into my style. I always switch the pickups, like clean, I'll have both pickups, and I'll hit the big muff, and then I'll switch to the bridge pickup. So I learned how to do that, and then the whammy bar I really liked, and so I just got used to it.
Yeah, and your style of playing, that particular type of vibrato system works perfectly for it. It's a very gentle, but it's also, you can't dive bomb it.
Yeah.
It's a very unique signature, that comes with that.
Yeah, some of the guys I liked, like Greg Sage, had a Bigsby and got kind of the same sound, and so I was kind of copying that.
Yep. One of the things I've always been interested in is when we think of the Jazzmaster, it really was that third tier thing. And it was really unusable from a vintage guitar standpoint because of the bridge that was on there, that it came designed, the original bridge that was put on it.
Right.
But if you immediately, when you first got your Jazzmaster, it didn't have that original threaded bridge, did it?
No, it had some other kind of bridge. Yeah.
I think that was the magical bean there, right? That you didn't have to fight that horrible bridge.
Right.
And I remember a common friend between both is Nate Westgard. And I had that Jazzmaster, and I wound up selling my Jazzmaster to Nate at Willie's, and he implored me. He said, don't give up on it.
Yeah.
Put the mastery bridge on there.
Oh, yeah.
And that really saved that guitar. Like when you think about any of the offsets that had those awful bridges, they were not designed for slinky type strings.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like the offsets were not Dad's guitar. They were something else completely. They were alternate to Strats and Tellys and Les Paul. And, you guys, Dinosaur Jr., were a big part of that grunge rock, alt rock. Just new. It was a new sound altogether. And that really came, and I think was lucky that tried to rip you off and you didn't get a Strat, because then you would have sounded like a lot of other people. Whereas that particular Jazzmaster.
Yeah, it's true. And when I play Strats, I'm like, oh God, I don't like some stuff I'm playing. It sounds more boring. Like, oh, this sounds like a Strat or something. The things I tend to play on it, I don't like as much because they sound more normal or something.
Yeah. And would you say that another huge component was that Big Muff, Ram's head, right?
Yeah, initially I had a deluxe Big Muff, was my first one that I used. And then it got stolen, and then that was a problem. Because we had to play a gig at CBGB's, and I didn't have it anymore. And so we sounded really weird. I had a turbo run. Even the head of our label was like, you guys sound weird. What's going on? I'm like, shit, my sound is gone. So I was freaking out. And I ended up trading somebody in town I knew had one. I had to trade him a Music Man head for it. And people thought I was crazy trading an amp for just a pedal, but that was my sound. And I was just like, but I didn't like that one as much. And then when I found the Ram's head on tour, our first tour, that sounded better to me. So then I phased out the deluxe and just stuck with the Ram's head.
Now, I know that you got a huge collection of Ram's heads. I think Vintage Guitar in 2016 did a video with you or something, and it shows you have a whole cabinet full of Ram's heads.
Yeah, that was from when I got the Big Muff stolen and my sound was gone. This is before the internet. So then I just started trying to buy them wherever I saw them on tour, just because I was scared of losing my sound again. So but now with the internet, you can just buy one anytime.
Yeah, it's funny that out of all the versions of the Big Muff, the Ram's head is the most expensive. As you would think that the earliest triangle knob version, but it's not. People will pay over $1,000 now for these Ram's heads.
Yeah, I like the sound definitely better than the earlier one.
Yeah, and I think the warm, creamy fuzz with the sustain. I just remember when I got my first Ram's head, it never dawned on me to play the Jazzmaster to the Ram's head. I was playing a Telecaster through it. Yeah. And now I'm thinking, that was kind of stupid of me to get rid of that Jazzmaster only because I couldn't take the bridge. And that's because I was a purist. I was just stubborn. I wouldn't change out and put the mastery on it.
Oh, yeah.
Which now I could kick myself for.
And I always had really high action, which that was another problem. People with low action on the Jazzmaster, it didn't like that. So.
As far as when you play through different Ram's heads, do they all sound the same, or does each one have a very distinct sound?
Oh, no, they all sound different.
Yeah, but they all sound, pretty close to the same. Like you'd be happy with it no matter what it was doing. It just was a little warmer, a little more mid-range or something like that.
I only really like the one. I've only really ever used the one, and I definitely like it a lot better than any other one I've tried.
Yeah, it's weird. Like when you think of the 90s sound, a lot of the guys were using the fourth version of that, which was the big, the big graphics one, the Smashing Pumpkins.
Yeah, right.
That was the op amp one.
I think the deluxe was an op amp one too, the first one I had.
Yeah, the deluxe that's like 1978-ish or so. So yeah, it's a total different sound.
Right, yeah.
I was always curious when I was doing the price guide, because the Ram's heads were going for $1,000 to $1,200, and the ones that came right after it were $400, and the ones that came before it might be $1,000.
Yeah.
There wasn't a big demand for the triangle versions from the early 70s. So It's a cool thing. I think everybody should have a little Big Muff.
Sure.
So let's talk about this Jazzmaster. Basically, the origins, tentatively titled this thing, the Edsel of solid bodies becomes the hot rod, like the sleeper hot rod.
Right.
And it's because Leo Fender designed this Jazzmaster to appeal to jazz guitarists. He was aiming for that high-end, sophisticated, to compete with the Gibsons. He wanted to be a top-tier model, and he wanted it to kind of like make the Stratocaster kind of go out of business. He wanted to beat it out before somebody else beat out the Stratocaster. But that didn't work at all, did it?
No, I even remember, up to like 92 playing, Jazzmaster, and people coming up to me is like, oh, you could have any guitar. Why are you playing that crappy thing? You're just like, people were still, early 90s were still just like, that's a crappy guitar. Why are you playing that?
Yeah. They wanted people with tuxedos and that red sheet music playing. It didn't want the Rubes and the rockers. He wanted to compete with the Gibson people. But, the truth is, people that wear tuxedos and read sheet music, they want to have tone wood resonance. They don't want twang.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a thing. So it was an Edsel. It was a flop. It was the jazz market failure. It just did not pop.
Yep.
It didn't. But then something strange happened in the early 60s. It became kind of like the twangy sound kind of suited what we call the surf rock era.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of like all of a sudden these things are, the Ventures, Dick Dale, the Beach Boys, these guys are all using this tremolo system. They love that tremolo system with the reverb heavy amps. And it really defined that whole sound. You think of that early 50s, Mr. Moto, Moon Over, Monocora sound,
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you take that sound, you put vocals over it, you get the Beach Boys. And that really kind of gave that Jazzmaster a new life.
Yeah, but then Hendrix killed it, I think.
Yep. Then the Stratocaster was almost phased out. Remember in 67, they only made like 50 Stratocasters.
Oh, wow.
I mean, 67, they only made like, a handful of Stratocasters. It was ready to go. They were ready to phase it out. And then the Hendrix comes, then that kind of killed the Jazzmaster,
Yeah.
But it didn't go away. It might have gone out to sea, but it washed up in punk basements, right? All the punkers started playing this thing because it was kind of like it wasn't your dad's guitar,
And they were cheap. Yeah.
And they were cheap, affordable. Third stair Tatis, affordable. The thing is that, Jags were always more affordable, but man, nobody liked that short scale, did they?
Or the pickups, like that combo, the short scale and the pickups. I just couldn't really, I don't know, it just doesn't work for me.
Yep. That was the thing, is that they were trying to make a guitar that would play like a Gibson. They were trying to compete to get that Gibson market.
Yeah.
And at the same time, Gibson's doing this. They're trying to play like a Fender by doing the Firebirds. And today, it's very hard to find Jaguars. There just aren't a lot of them out there. And that's just because the market isn't really for them. When things rise in price, they kind of get flushed into the market. So when Jazzmaster started peaking a couple of years ago, they all started coming out. People, now's the time to sell the Jazzmaster,
Right. I mean, the Jaguar I have, I even put the adapter plate on the pickup switch that makes it more like a Jazzmaster. It got rid of the 3 little switches and just made it a one toggle switch like a Jazzmaster.
You know how when I think of the Jazzmaster, I think of you, but is there anybody who associate with the Jaguar as far as when it comes to indie rock?
Yeah, My Bloody Valentine and Sonic Youth. Like when I first was hanging out with Sonic Youth, Thurston was playing a Jaguar, and now Johnny Marr.
Yeah, Johnny Marr, I think that's a signature model they make.
Yeah.
Now, you have a Fender Custom Shop. When they make a Jazzmaster today, they certainly don't use the original bridge. I think they have a new system. Most of us just put on the Mastery. That's probably the best one for it. But geez, there are a lot of alternatives that you can use. Like some people put Mustang bridges on it. Some people just put regular Gibson Tune-O-Matics on them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know the professional Jazzmaster bridges, they have a modern kind of, it's like pressed. It's not that threaded saddle, which is...
That's what I do, yeah.
And that was the thing for me, is that when I played that Jazzmaster, within 3 notes, the string was off the bridge. And I was like, well, it's not a Telecaster.
Yeah. Yeah. I just got a Jazzmaster that had one of those buzz stops on it, which I'd never tried, and that's not bad.
Right now, Fender makes 3 guitars, signature models for you. They make the Jazzmaster, and they make a Squier Jazzmaster, which is better price point. And then they also make a Telecaster for you, the 59 Telecaster that you use.
Yeah.
We didn't really talk about Telecasters that much. When you record, do you use the Telecaster more than you use the Jazzmaster?
Yeah.
And why is that?
Ever since I got it, I just like what I play on it. Like leads, I tend to like what I'm playing on this one Telecaster more than the stuff I play on the Jazzmaster. So virtually all the leads I record with the Telecaster. I just, it belonged to a studio I recorded at, and, I was playing it in the studio, and then suddenly I really liked it and just told the guy, if he ever wanted to sell it, let me know. And he's like, I could never sell that. And then like 2 months later, he was like, hey, you want to buy that guitar? So
was it that color, or did you make it the Bottle Rocket?
No, I painted it. Yeah. Well, first I got some drum covering, and just taped it to the front like a Gretsch kind of thing, and then I had it painted that color eventually.
And it's nice. I love the sparkle. You like sparkle stuff.
Yeah.
I've looked at some of your collections online when they published that article. I love the sparkle stuff. I love the Blue Rocket blue flake finish on that. I love the mirrored chrome pick guard and the tele pick low output.
Yeah.
That's a great one. If people looking for a great signature model, is that Fender Mascis Telecaster. It's a great Telecaster.
And it's a top loader, because that's the first Telecaster I had, and it was a top loader, so I didn't know any different, and I just like the way it feels better with the top loader than a regular one.
Yeah, there are a lot of people that can make top loaders sound really good. Telecaster purists are like, no, it has to be strung through the back. No, if you know how to play that Telecaster, the top loader sometimes works in your advantage, especially when you're dynamically changing things with pedals and such.
Yeah, and that's the first one I played, so I didn't know any better.
Now, the Jazzmaster that they make for you, that's got the sparkle finish on it, right? Well, the one that's made in
Japan.
that one's hard to find, though. That's a very limited production.
Yeah.
And it's a white finish.
People tend to like the Squire one better, I think,
Are they both wired the same way?
I think so. They're just regular.
Just a regular. Like when you first got your Jazzmaster, was it wired the way a Jazzmaster is supposed to be wired?
Yeah.
So did you ever experiment with the top circuit?
Never. I would take a pencil eraser and stick it in there so I wouldn't.
It wouldn't even be tempted to.
No. Just annoyed me. Yeah.
I think when I had my Jazzmaster, I remember watching a YouTube video just trying to figure out how this stupid system works. The wiring, from what I was told, is that the dual circuit design had its own rhythm circuit, and then it had its own lead circuit. And this came from Forrest White. He had made this 10-string lap steel back in the late 40s, early 50s. And he used a very similar thing on that, where he could switch it a stretch that would give him what he thought was the lead sound, and then switch it back and get him a rhythm sound kind of thing.
Right.
And that was kind of what that was for. But I don't know of anybody who ever uses those sliders.
Yeah, I'll usually disconnect it.
Yeah. To me, it was like, I was always so confused by that thing. I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah.
When I wanted to play lead, I just selected the bottom circuit rear pickup. When I wanted to play rhythm, I just selected the front pickup. And then when I would take that slider switch, it would just screw everything up. It would make it sound horrible. So I was always confused by that.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting how it was humbucking in the middle too. That was pretty cool.
It was a very sophisticated design. So you got to remember, like, this Jazzmaster was aiming for the high-end sophisticated instrument. He wanted to compete, so he wanted it to be the top-tier model. He wanted it to override the Stratocaster. And, the Stratocaster was supposed to replace the Telecaster, and the Jazzmaster was supposed to replace and knock the Stratocaster out of the picture. But, it just never caught on. It just, off-body waist was for player comforts because most jazz guys sat. This was designed for a sitting person. Yeah. So I don't know. Most people love the off-waist body shape,
Yeah, I wasn't too crazy about how it looked for, a few years, but I got used to it.
I think Leo Fender and Forrest White, they thought they were going to reinvent the wheel here. So they come up with this floating tremola, a whole new system. It's completely different than the inertia block that was on the Strat. And this was a floating bridge, and it's designed for smoother pitch modulation, but it really introduced a lot of tuning problems, for most people. That's why, most of us that prefer the Stratocaster if you're going to do a lot of whammy bar stuff.
Oh yeah, I never had too much problem with it, I guess because I just had a different bridge.
Yeah, the bridge made it all work. I could kick myself for not even going that way.
Yeah.
And then of course the rosewood, this is the first Leo Fender wants to put that rosewood to make it finer. It's got the 25.5-inch scale, but it's, the rosewood. I think the folklore is that he was tired of seeing the maple neck Strats on black and white TV with all the smudge marks on them. Because by 1958, anybody who'd been playing that Stratocaster for a couple of years, he was basically worn away that clear lac and he had smudge marks. So that was the folks' tale.
Yeah, I can see that.
Do you prefer maple necks or rosewood necks on your guitars?
I prefer maple, I think.
Yeah, most people do. I don't know why. I think it's brighter. People say it's brighter, snappier, brighter. And on stage, like I found that when I was on stage and the stage lights were low, I couldn't see the heck where I was, like if I didn't have a maple neck.
Yeah, it's a little snappier sound. You need LEDs put in or something.
Yeah, that's why I gave up playing rosewood necks. But like we said, the initial reception was that it just was not going to work. Surf Rock saves it, and then you guys come in and really give it a whole new life. You make this old Edsel kind of a hot rod, a sleeper hot rod, as it were. And to me, that's just, few people can, lay that kind of claim to actually giving a whole model of a guitar new life, and that was kind of what you guys did.
Yeah, it wasn't easy. I think people really thought they looked stupid, early on when I was playing it. They're like, what is that?
Yeah, but it had a cult following among punk, new wave, alternative. Its affordability was certainly a factor when you think of, the bands Silent Youth, The Cure, Dinosaur Jr., the versatility of both clean and heavily distorted sound. That was a guitar that gave you very clean and very distorted. That pickup was...
Yeah, and I love the clean sound with the both pickups. That's my main clean sound, and it's not a sound you can get on a Strat or a Tele.
Yeah, and I think like this is a guitar you can modify. You kind of need to modify it, as we were saying earlier.
Yeah.
But, today, people that are looking for a vintage Fender, it's less than half the price of a Stratocaster most of the time. And you're going to get quite a few miles out of it. It's going to be great. Going to be great.
Yeah, and with the Tune-O-Matic bridge, I usually have fill the holes and then drill at the very back of the big hole to push the bridge back so the intonation is better for me, because with the high action, it was hard to intonate. So it's good. You got to move the bridge back a little bit.
Yeah, I was like looking through like the Fender, like the signature models. And I think yours and maybe a few others are the only ones that Fender uses that ABT type bridge on. It's especially made just for that guitar, that ABT type style.
Oh yeah, right. That's because that's like more of a Gibson signature thing.
A lot of people would buy those and put them on other Gretches. They put them on their,
Oh yeah,
other.
I do that too. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was, that's the secret right there. Like I say, that when I think of the Jazzmaster, we always say, we always talk about you and how you basically put this guitar in front of everybody, and everybody, recognizes your tone.
Yeah.
From that serendipitous guy trying to rip you off.
And it's definitely not a purist tone. It's like any distorted sound I make starts with the big muff, and then I add more fuzz on top of that for different kinds of sounds. But the big muff's always the base of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like you can play straight through the amp kind of sound.
These days, what are you using as your amp on stage?
I've been using the same amps for quite a while now. A Plexi PA head, and a Plexi Super Bass, and a Hiwatt DR103, and then a Blackface Fender Twin. It's kind of like a stereo setup to me, like the Marshalls or the woofer, and the Hiwatt's the mid, and the Twin's the tweeter. So all together, it's like a full range.
And you mainly play Jazzmasters on stage, right?
Yeah.
So that's your sound, and then big muff on stage. But in the studio, you tend to use the Telecasters for leads. Do you use the big muff in the studio?
Not really. Yeah. I use a lot of just different fuzz. I'll just put a bunch of fuzz pedals together and try to come up with some sound that I like.
Mm-hmm.
A friend of mine built me a Mark I tone bender, and I really like that. That's kind of maybe takes the place of the big muff in the studio. I use that a lot as the fuzz bass for recording. And I use, smaller amps like a Tweed Bandmaster's maybe my favorite, the 310. Yeah.
Best sounding amp Fender ever made. So let me ask you, like Dinosaur Jr. I love when I hear about how bands tell other bands they can't use their name. So you guys start out as Dinosaur?
Yeah.
And so who told you couldn't use Dinosaur because there was already a band named Dinosaurs?
The Fish from Country Joe and the Fish, Barry Melton, sent me a letter to cease and desist because he had this band, the Dinosaurs.
Yeah. Did you guys just discuss, like, what should we call ourselves? How about Dinosaur Jr.?
Yeah, I just made it up because I'm a junior.
Mm-hmm.
I'm, Joseph Jr., so I just thought, well, I'm used to that. So, and it's a good thing now in the internet age. If it was Dinosaur, it'd be harder to find, in a search. So that's good.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I always get a kick out of bands that tell other bands, you can't use our name.
Yeah.
But that second band becomes much more famous. They last longer. Blink wants to use Blink, and then they can't because there's another band called Blink. They got to change their name to Blink 192 or whatever.
Yeah.
I was actually surprised to see who was in Dinosaurs. That was like the first super band out of the Bay Area, right? That was all the San Francisco psychedelic people,
Recently, I met Barry Melton's son. He's like, when my dad dies, I'll give you the name back. I was like, all right, cool.
So, like I say, you guys, I think they put one album out, maybe two albums, and you guys you're still going,
Yeah, a couple times some old hippies came to our shows early on and were like, you guys aren't Dinosaurs. When we played in San Francisco or something. But...
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what are you guys doing now? Are you guys... I know that you're doing some shows.
Yeah, we've been recording a new album.
So you're still doing albums? Like I know a lot of people are now just releasing singles, but you're going to do a full album.
Yeah, I still like albums, and I can't really think of not doing an album. Like when I started out, it was the punk idea was you have the album as a flyer so you can have it for the show. It's like you make an album so you can go on tour. So I'm still in that mindset. So
yeah, most of us prefer making albums and absorbing music in an album form.
Yeah, I still like listening to albums. I can't.
Yeah.
It freaks me out to have every song in the world available on my phone. It just paralyzes me into not wanting to listen to anything.
Right. What is your favorite album anytime now, classic album that you put on if you're just sitting around doing nothing?
Well, yeah, it's kind of cliche. I like Exile on Main Street's probably my favorite.
Yeah, great album. Do you like Who Live It Leads?
Sure. I wish that first song was on it. Was it Heaven and Hell, the one? Mm-hmm. It's not on the album, but it's on, the CD.
Right, it's on. They played it at Hull.
Yeah, it's like the song that they always started with, and I wish that was on the album because that's like my favorite.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because how we talk about like our generation absorbed vinyl, so that when you get these deluxe versions, they add in all that other stuff. It doesn't taste right. There's something like you miss. You only know what you knew, and all the extra stuff kind of like, well, now you know why they didn't put it on there. originally.
Or I wish they did put that on there and took something else off there.
Yeah, and I know that you love Beach Boys albums. I remember reading somewhere that you big Beach Boys fan.
Yeah, I remember playing a Beach Boys tape in like '89 in Germany when on our tour. I'd play Beach Boys before we went on, and at that point, people hated the Beach Boys, and it was always a hostile reaction. It was weird. I was like, "You don't like the Beach Boys?"
I always think of, whenever my daughter's home, I'll make her sit and listen to vinyl with me. And I'll put Pet Sounds on, and I'll like, just listen, just sit and listen.
Yeah.
And you'll get that, well, this is, And I'm like, no. This is changes everything. This is kind of changes everything. Now we have songs about how you feel and what you're thinking, not shoo wop, doo wop, baby wop, that kind of stuff. It's just, so to me, it's like, I always think of Mike Love saying to, like, who the hell is going to listen to this shit? Well, everybody. It has staying power. So
we played a festival with the Beach Boys last year, and I stood on stage while they were playing. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I could imagine. That must have been awesome, I tell you. Well, anyways, I want to just, I wanted to do this Jazzmaster show, and I wanted to do it with you because you really defined that guitar. You really gave that guitar life. Where today people are buying Jazzmasters, it's really because of what happened. It wasn't because of the jazz. It wasn't because of the sound of the 60s. It's really because of what happened after that.
Yeah, and I just learned how to play on it. So it's just like, that's what I play live. I'm just, switching the pickups and the whammy bar, and I'm just used to it. Yeah.
So if anybody out there is thinking about buying a Jazzmaster, trying a Jazzmaster, you need to have that tool in your arsenal. I guess we implore you to make sure, if it's an original bridge from the pre-CBS days, you're probably going to have trouble with it. But man, there's so many alternatives to put on there.
Yeah.
The one that was the mastery one is the one that most people put on there, or just an ABT, just a straight up ABT. And John Woodland actually designed that mastery bridge, and he was working at Willie's, I think, at the time, Willie's in Minneapolis. So I was talking to Nate Westgar, and when I sold him my Jazzmaster, he's like, why don't you just put a mastery bridge on it? And I'm like, well, because I'm a purist,
Yeah, I put a mastery tremolo on all my live guitars now, too. I like those a lot.
Well, I can't thank you enough. This was a fun little talk. I think maybe people will be out there willing to give that Jazzmaster a second look.
Yeah.
Buy it online, if it's a Slimy Bob.
Yeah.
And maybe avoid him. Nah. He's out there somewhere. Slimy Bob's out there somewhere. He's probably got a reverb store or something. There. So anyways, right. Jay, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to the new album when it comes out. I can't wait to hear it.
All right, thanks a lot.
All righty, we'll talk to you again. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to Buy That Guitar, presented by Vintage Guitar Magazine. Please support VG for all they do for guitar players like us. Please subscribe, like, share, and comment on this podcast. I'd love to hear from you at ram@vintageguitar.com. See you again next week. Bye-bye.
The official Vintage Guitar Magazine price guide has partnered with 33 of the top guitar dealers in the industry to provide the most accurate values for thousands of models. This includes electric guitars, acoustic guitars, basses, amplifiers, effects, mandolins, and banjos. Whether your instrument is an investment or simply a piece you enjoy playing, it's always helpful to know what it's worth. If you're checking out a guitar at your local shop and want to know its value before making the purchase, this guide is your go-to source for all the details. Available in both print and digital editions, you can have the guide right at your fingertips no matter where you go.